Today's lesson is on 4.3, making graphs using intercepts. And so before we can make the graphs using those intercepts, we have to know what they are. So we have the definition here of the x-intercept. The x-intercept is the x-coordinate of a point where the graph crosses the x-axis. So if you think of the word intercept, that sounds like a word interception, which is, we know, in football. If a player throws an interception or a quarterback throws an interception, it crosses paths with the other team and the other team takes the football. So in here with x and y intercept, it's where the graph crosses the path of the axis. So the x-coordinate of a point where the graph crosses the x-axis is the x-intercept. And at the x-intercept, y is 0. Then at the y-intercept, it's the same thing, only now it's on the y-axis and it's the y-coordinate. So now x equals 0. So if we're looking for the x-intercept, y is 0, y-intercept, x is 0. So to find the intercepts then, we plug in 0. So we have this equation here. It says find the x and y intercepts of the graph. 4x plus 3y equals 12. So if we're looking for the x-intercept, we plug in 0 for y. So in place of y in that equation, I'm going to plug in 0. So I have 4x plus 3 times 0 equals 12. And I solve that for x, and I find out that x is 3. I do the same thing to find the y-intercept, except for I plug in 0 for x. So 4 times 0 plus 3y equals 12. And then I divide both sides by 3, and I get y equals 4. So that means the x-intercept is 3 and the y-intercept is 4. All right, so what are we going to use this information for? Well, once we have the x and y-intercept, then we can use that information to graph the equation. So instead of what we looked at in the last lesson, making the XY tables and having to go through and do 5 different calculations, this only requires us to do 2 calculations, just finding the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So it's a little bit easier. So we're going to first find the intercepts, just like we did in the previous example, and then we're going to use those intercepts to graph the line. So x-intercept is where y equals 0, so I get x equals 2. So on my graph then, I'm going to put a dot on the x-axis at positive 2. Then I'm going to solve for the y-intercept. I find out that the y-intercept is negative 1/2, so I put a dot at negative 1/2. Now I have my 2 points, so I can use a straight edge or a ruler to connect those 2 points, and now I have the graph of that line. Now the only problem with this is that it is possible to have an incorrect line only because you have 2 points. So if you do the y-intercept, say, incorrectly, then your line is completely wrong. So you just have to be careful. Maybe check one of the points, so look and see and say, okay, well, this looks like it goes through that point right there of negative 2, negative 1. So plug those values in and see if it works. That way you're certain you have the right line. Okay, so here's another example. Y equals negative 2x plus 25. Again, plug in 0 for y, solve, and get the x-intercept. Plug in 0 for y, or excuse me, plug in 0 for x and get the y-intercept. Now, if you look at this graph, though, the y-intercept is positive 25. Well, I don't want to draw a graph that has 25 lines. I mean, that's a huge graph, and I don't need it to be that big. So you can go ahead and number your graph by equal intervals other than 1. So you notice I numbered by 5. So each line is worth 5. And really what you do on the x-axis, you should be consistent and number the same way on the y-axis. Otherwise, you can skew your graph to make it look different than it really should be. And that's a statistical kind of thing that stats tends to do. So we really want to keep our x and y axes numbered at the same intervals. All right, so 2 problems I'd like you to try tonight. And graph both of those using the intercepts. So find your x and y intercept, graph both of those. There's plenty of room on this piece of paper to show your work, and then also graph. If you need to change your intervals, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. You can count by 2s, 4s, 3s, 5s, 10s even. It doesn't matter, whatever is conducive to the graph that you need to graph. Have those done for tomorrow. Enjoy your night.